Hi everybody, Karis here, and I am in Paonia, Colorado. I think I'm gonna root down here for a few months, maybe until springtime comes. And right now, I want to tell you guys something crazy that happened yesterday. Today is January 2nd, so yesterday would have been the 1st of January for 2014. And I was doing some soul retrieval work. So the way that soul retrieval works for me, at least, is I somehow have some type of an experience that shows me that there's a piece of myself kind of locked up somewhere or lost somewhere or whatever. They're all different kinds of soul retrieval from a bunch of different traditions. So the way that I do it is just kind of with what happens as I'm retrieving the piece once I realize that it's lost. So anyway, I've been doing a lot of work lately with fellow priestesses, modern day priestesses, who our lifestyle has less to do with worshiping anything, because the point is not to worship anything, not to like give your energy up to anything, but rather to come into your own self as a divine being and to honor that. And with the women that I've been meeting lately and the sisters that I've been meeting lately, we're all having the same kinds of memories of living in the temples, of being able to do things that we have not yet figured out how to do in these bodies since the knowledge has been lost, stuff like that. And so at some point over the past week or so, talking to one of my priestess sisters, I realized that there is a piece of me that was locked up. And it's interesting because a lot of times I'll get it out right away. As soon as I realize it's locked up, I go in and set that piece free, and that's happened before. But this time I needed to give it a little bit of time and space and understand it first. I'm not sure why. That's how it is being an intuitive, you guys. You know why you do the stuff that you do, and then eventually it makes sense. So what happened was I had a memory of one of the past lives in the temples, and my friend who I was talking to, I remembered kind of her room. Like we each had these different rooms that we would work in, and they all had different vibrations. And people who came to the temples to get knowledge that we were accessing through our just work, which was all day long meditation, various styles of meditation. All of our rooms had a specific theme that most closely aligned with our talent in whatever kind of energetic way that talent manifested in the body that we were in. And so my particular room in this lifetime in this temple was this pitch black room with a bunch of tiny pinpricks of light everywhere. I think actually that they were electricity, and I think that people thought they were magic because they didn't know what electricity was, but we had that technology in the priestesshood. I don't know why I wouldn't share with the masses. I don't remember any of that stuff. I just know that electricity was not common, and so having all these little pinpricks of light, which shone like stars with that cool light that's not exactly the same as firelight or candlelight, was a specific experience that created a specific vibration and resonance that allowed the information that I got to come through in that room. And me in the room, my body was painted so that I completely camouflaged into the wall. So I had kind of these sparkles on my body, and it was painted a dark color or something. I'm not exactly sure how it worked. I just know that when people would come into the room, they couldn't see me until I moved. So it was kind of a freaky thing. And people liked to come in because they knew I had good intel, but they also didn't really like to come in because it was intense and unsettling, which explains a lot of my interpersonal interactions in this lifetime, actually, which is a whole other story. So anyway, after I realized that, then maybe a day or two later, I had a vision of that piece of my soul stuck in this bardo place, because what ended up happening, and what I carry a lot of in my chakra system, and I know a lot of you kindred spirits out there do as well, is the trauma that was created when the equilibrium between both aspects of our consciousness in our world, which is masculine and feminine, got disrupted. And the way that it got disrupted in a lot of places was by violence toward the people holding the knowledge. So a lot of you, say men who've had past experience as druids, remember when stuff got just destroyed, right? And so for me, as a being who was a lot of times working in the holy places of the sacred feminine, what ended up happening to me in at least one incarnation was rape and murder. And that disrupts your pieces. So the piece of me that understood all of the things that I understood when I was in that star room was locked away and trapped and encased. And so the way that this ended up coming to me in my meditation, when I actually retrieved that piece of my soul, was translated into ways that my conscious mind understands. So as I'm telling this to you, this is not necessarily literally, physically what happened, but it's what it translated into so I could understand it. So I'll just tell you what the experience was so you can unpack it however you like, especially for those of you who were down there with me, which I will get to in a second. Might be every single person watched this video. I don't know how many people it was. So I see that version, the version that had been in the star room, and she's in a dungeon, prison cell, and she had on tattered clothing that were actually the same clothes that she wore in the temple, but now they're all just torn apart and rags. And there was even a little bit of glitter still on her skin. And it's interesting because when I noticed the glitter on her skin, I also had a memory of one of the people who maintain the prison coming down, possibly in the very beginning, and kind of taking the glitter and looking at it and being very derisive about it, like it was somehow dirty or wrong or stupid. And then at the same time taking the actual glitter, which was made out of, holy crystals and charged stuff, sacred energetic substance, and then sending it home to, the people back there as a gift. So this is how this works, right? So, okay, she's in the room. She is wearing the tattered clothes. Her body is bruised and bloody and abused. And her hair was wild. All I could see was one eye. Her hair was covering all but one eye. And she's looking at me with this wide-eyed look of complete terror. And up in the corner, most opposite the door of her dungeon cell, and pedaling her legs back like this against the floor. Sorry, my words are a little bit jumbled. One, it's cold and snowy out, and two, this is very intense memory for me, and this is only the second time I've brought it through in words, so it's not going to all be as polished as some of my other information sometimes is. So she's completely terrorized, completely traumatized, backing up against me, who's really just her. But if anyone comes in the cell, that's how she's been treated for so long. So she's completely forgotten. She was kind of a wild thing at this point. And I saw her there, and her hands were together like this and chained to the wall, or either roped to the wall in such a way that she could move around the cell, but couldn't get out, and was obviously bound in such a way that would make your hands like this. And because I run a lot of power through my hands, it makes sense that they would have been tied up like that. And so she had been, being systematically tortured for maybe a couple thousand years, this piece still stuck in this etheric dungeon. And so a couple days passed when I just processed that she was there at all, because these were the same times that I was having, like, past life memories of, say, being a Nazi, which I did remember being a Nazi and being a researcher and coming across some piece of spirit technology that could bring world peace and then being shot and killed for it, right? Because that wasn't allowed to get out. And so I had been a little bit busy, and my friend Krista Risa, who is an incredibly gifted channel and intuitive, said a few weeks ago, just before I went down to Sedona and visited her, that she felt like her intuition has doubled in a very short time. And I remember hearing that and saying, oh my gosh, doubled hers? She's already super powerful. Well, if it's doubled, then what does that mean? But now I get it, because the way my intuition works is by all these ideas and information streaming through, and it's coming so fast that I'm really having a hard time keeping up. So anyway, back to the soul retrieval. So she's in the dungeon, terrified, bruised, battered, pretty much as bad as it can get, for as long as she can remember. She remembered kind of a history of sacred, holy things, but it had been so long that it seemed kind of imaginary to her. Now she was just in this place of kind of insanity, powerlessness, and hopelessness. And I realized that if I were to go into the cell to get her in the normal way, she would just be terrified of me, because she wouldn't recognize me, because it had been so long since she was all one piece that she wouldn't think that anything was coming except for pain and further torture. So I made myself into a light being, and this is what I want to impart to you guys, because some of it was done to the rest of you, but I think after hearing this, you're going to know how to do it and actually do it yourselves, and you might have some pretty intense experiences. So if you do, I'd love to hear about them. Anyway, I went into the cell as a light being. So I just went in as a figure just completely made of golden light. And she saw me, and she ran over to me as well as you can run, on your knees, and was groveling on the ground and whimpering and crying and kind of jabbering about how I thought you'd never come back, I didn't know, and and was kind of abasing herself, which I didn't like, of course. So I stood her up and said, no, 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 you are divine, and you shouldn't abase yourself to anyone. And then in other soul retrieval episodes I've had, the piece of my soul has dived, you know what I'm saying, dived into me and then integrated. And then the rest of the day I would feel like little connections being made all over my body as this new piece of my energetic circulatory system got integrated, right? But this time, rather than her diving into me, I dove into her. So the light being dove into her, and then I was aware of being her, which was very strange. But what I realized was once that piece reintegrated, I looked down and still the tattered clothes and everything, but now I felt my posture back. I felt my inner posture back, and my meridians open and my lines clear, and I knew again that I was a sacred being. And I just walked out of the cell. And then out of the cell, I realized I was in this underground hallway that at one end sloped up to the light, but kept kind of going down at an angle, and there are doors all along that hallway with a bunch of other trapped priestesses and probably priests too. This is not necessarily a gender specific thing. So I don't know how many of you guys were in there. But what I did was I meditated from that spot and called in all of the light being versions of each person in there, and they all went into the rooms and integrated, and then all the doors came open, and everyone had then transformed into kind of halfway etheric beings so they could do things like fly. So they all flew out, and we all flew out of the tunnel, the dungeon tunnel, and then swirled around in this beautiful golden magical whirlwind, and then split off and all started to fly toward our own geographical locations where you are in your body now. And I came, for instance, to the mountains of Colorado, where I started to construct a home in the etheric planes, which is how one of the ways that you can do it. And then, of course, within a couple hours, I heard of a perfect place being opened up for us to move while we're living here. So that worked out great. But what I want to tell you guys is there's a whole lot of knowledge now that's reemerging. And I think that it's interesting that that happened on New Year's Day, because there's that legend right now that says that a whole new aspect of the goddess is going to reemerge and rejoin our world on the spring equinox. So any of you who feel stirrings watching this video, perhaps it might behoove you to go into a meditation and see where your integration is, now that you kind of have these keys to this whole dimension, a trapped dimension that now we're coming out of. So that's exciting. And I hope you're all doing very well. And I'll give you a view of the snow here. It's been a while since I've been in snow. So I hope you can see. I'm outside the library right now. I love libraries, and that's one of the first things I do when I come into a new city is I integrate into library, and I want to do some research on the land here. Check out that mountain. I hope you guys can see it. And some of the history is about what's been going on this land, so I can assist in whatever way I can. All right, much love. Happy New Year. I hope you're all doing wonderfully well, and very much looking forward to what is created in this year, because this is the year of creation. So it's going to be a balance between getting our amazing ideas and then putting them into form. Last year was about ideas and connection. 2014 is about creating real 3D or whatever dimension we're now in, physical stuff. Anyway, love you all. Hope you're well. Go in peace, and I'll talk to you again very soon.